Hi, we're back for This is Grandma Jane and my intelligent daughter Elizabeth.
Oh my gosh.
Who I love very much.
Now it's my turn to ask Grandma Jane her questions. So I guess we'll just start off about tell us about yourself.
I am married for 35 years and I have 4 beautiful children, 3 boys and a girl. So my daughter is very much a tomboy because of growing up with 3 brothers. So anyways, I knew a little bit about ADHD and ADD and that kind of stuff with my kids, but I never knew the world of autism, let alone level 3 autism. So
okay,
that's a little bit about us.
So, all right, how about, this is my first question. How did you feel about Leon's diagnosis?
At first, when she told me, I'll never forget, he was in our RV and he was in the shower, and I had just given him a shower. He was all clean, but he was playing in there and he was spinning in circles, and he was so cute. And Elizabeth came back there and she said, don't let him do that. Don't let him do that. And I'm like, what? He's being a little kid. No, he can't spin in circles. Don't let him spin in circles. And like, what? And then that's when Elizabeth finally kind of told me that the doctors thought he might be autistic, and that was one of the signs. And I was like, oh, Elizabeth, you're being silly. He's fine. Because he had met so many milestones other than speaking and early milestones, like he liked to go in the bathroom and on the toilet. He was doing lots of things. So
he was almost potty trained.
Right, yeah.
Before too.
Yeah. So I just was like, you're being silly. But then of course, the more that I looked at it and little things that I saw, I realized that he was.
The main thing was when we went to Disney, that's when we were like, yeah, he's for sure autistic.
Yeah, I think it was before that, but yes. We planned a Disney trip thinking that he would be great at 3 to go to Disney World, and we had no idea that he was going to be autistic. We had been planning this for 2 years, and he just was not ready for Disneyland but Disney World, excuse me. But it turned out to be a wonderful time, and Disney World was great with him, but it just wasn't what we thought at the time that we had started planning it.
Yeah.
But it took me a while when he was first diagnosed, because I'm an action person, so it's hard for me to listen to someone. I want to solve everybody's problems because I had 4 kids and my husband traveled a lot. So I was the one in charge of solving everything. So it was really hard. I wanted her to do things my way, and I had to pray about it and realize that I was not the mother. I was the grandmother. I still have probably problems with that.
Oh, yeah.
So sometimes I even have to ask Elizabeth, did you want me to solve this, or do you want me to just listen? And she laughs at me. Just listen, Mom. I said, okay, I'll just listen. So it's hard, and that's why I thought it'd be good for family members to hear some of this, and so that we don't...
Like, at first, we didn't get along, and we argued all the time, but now we're on the same page. I think it's kind of brought me and you closer. And there was some stuff that always fought, like, she wanted me to go actually get the diagnosis. We were like, no, Mom, there's a wait. I think that's something that most parents don't understand, is how much a wait is for everything for autism. Mm-hmm. Just even getting him diagnosed, getting into speech and occupational and ABA, anything, there's a wait. And the wait can be a year, it could be 4 months, it could be like a week, but there's a wait for everything. And I think that's one of the things that we kind of butted heads on at first, because you didn't understand the wait list. Even though we put him on a wait list to get him tested, you were like, when are you going to get him tested? What are you going to do this? When are you going to do that? And I think
it was me being a parent and a grandmother, and I had to let you accept it and let you go through what you needed to go through.
Navigate it myself, yeah.
And you know what? I'm glad that you told me about it, and I realized that it took me going online and learning about autism, but reading a page that said the top 10 things that autistic parents hate when people say, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm saying every one of those. And I was just like, I can't do this to my daughter. I need to be here. And I think that's what we need to be as grandparents or friends, or that we need to be their support group and listening person, and let them as a family try to go through all that they need to go through. And so it's a different role. It's very hard.
When I explained to you so one of the things that we had to figure out for Leon, because he wouldn't stay in his room at night, and this was before he was diagnosed, we discussed it because he was in birth to 3, and his therapist recommended us doing it. So we put a child lock on the inside of his door so he would stay in his room at night. And when I told you this, how did you feel about it? Like, how did you, until you realized that, yes, this is correct, this is something that needed to happen?
And this is where I think we need to really, you can't just say autism. And I think almost level 3 needs to be in a category of its own. Because high functioning, I think autistic kids don't understand that, parents don't understand this either. I never even heard of the word eloping. And so for me, I thought, you can't lock them in there because if there's a fire or something like that. But the scary thing is not, it's far more likely that he's going to leave his room, you not hear him, and get into something in the house, hurt himself, because he has no self-control over what he wants. If his mind tells him he needs to go in the refrigerator, he's going to go in that refrigerator, and he's not going to let go of that thought. And they also elope, and they go outside, and he can't communicate. So there's so many scary things in this world that I didn't know about. So all of those concerns far outweigh the fact that there might be a fire, which in a family with children that are growing up, that's what you worry about, the fire or the hazard. So you don't want to have the doors locked and things like that. But in this world, that you have to protect these kids from themselves.
Abusing him, but
I did not think you were.
No, but a lot of people do, and it's not because we do have a camera in there and check on him all the time. And if he is like doing something, or if he's awake, I mean, we go in there.
Right.
And
he's so cute when you see him on the video when he's in his room by himself. But
we were constantly on the camera. But like if we didn't have it on there, we didn't shut the door all the way one time, and he got into the refrigerator and opened it up. Him and the dog got into the milk and the eggs everywhere. They had a feast, and then he got into my makeup. I mean, it could have been so much worse. He could have gotten into our chemicals. He could have gotten into anything. Could have gone down the stairs. That's what is the main thing, is that if we had our door shut, which we have to keep our door open so I can hear him. And this is another story about getting a bed, but so yeah, like that's what the main thing was that we kind of fought about, was the door handle. I mean, even now still we're fighting it with our coordinator because no one really understands it, because they say it's a fire hazard and he has to get in and out of his room, which I understand. He needs to get in and out of his room easily. But even if you have those door alarms on there, like, what's that going to do to stop him? It's not going to stop him from doing anything bad, And I think that's something that people need to bring awareness to. Because I'm not going to leave my kid in there if there was a fire. That's the first thing I'm going to do is go in his room.
And we like, get that there's other ways about it, but so we're playing around with other ways, especially at my house, because I don't have it set up as childproof as her house, obviously. But
That's
so
true.
it's
And
really
it always
close.
makes
And
me scared.
it makes me scared of water because he
He
runs
loves
to water and things like that. But
Okay, do you still think Leon is autistic, or is just being a kid that is slow?
no, unfortunately, or I don't know if it's unfortunately, because I just love him so much. I couldn't love him anymore he's so cute. But he definitely is autistic. And so I want to help him as much as I can to have the best life and lead the best life that he can. But no matter what, he's my little guy and I just love him. And the nonverbal thing that is the scariest about me is that sometimes I don't know whether he knows that it's me that he's seeing every time. But now that he's growing up a little bit more,
he knows.
It's so cute when I realize
he says "I love you." Yeah,
he says "I love you" by putting his hand on my mouth
or telling you to shut up. But
no, he's not.
I know. I'm just kidding.
And like this Christmas was the first Christmas that he actually gave me a gift, and he knew that he was giving me a gift that he had created. He painted a little nutcracker, and he handed it to me, and then he hugged me as tight as he could, and I was like, oh my gosh, he knows who I am. And he's got such a personality. He's so silly. He's so fun.
Well, the thing with Leon that makes him a little different than most autistic kids is he likes to be touched. And he shows affection. And he's also not like a typical nonverbal kid as well. And that's something that also is a little harder to comprehend of him being autistic because, me being with a lot of different autistic kids, even at school and stuff, and seeing the nonverbal kids and the high functioning ones, it's different than Leon completely. Like, I think every one of
them are unique.
It is true, but
even any family, you have two parents that raise you the same way, but you have 4 siblings and you all turn out differently. So every child, no matter what, has a different personality in that.
I know you've said this to me a couple times, which is kind of gets us into a little bit of fights. You know how you sometimes you say, "Hey, I had 4 kids. I can handle Leon." But Leon is almost like those 4 kids, I mean, you have to be on him 24/7, right?
Yes.
What's the difference between having 4 kids and Leon?
Well, I know I say that. I try to toughen my family up, to let them know that they can do it is what I'm trying to get at. And sometimes as a mom, you also want to have recognition that you did do this with your 4 kids. So it's a little bit of having my people or someone know that, hey, you're pretty tough yourself. But Leon, like I said, this is a whole new world for me. And I don't know, I can't compare him to 4 kids, but definitely you have to have your hands on him. He lulls you into like a false sense of security. If you're holding his hand and then you want to pay at the cashier, or you're getting him out of the car and you just want to shut the car door and you let go of his hand for a second. If he knows you're not holding his hand, he will just take off running. And so it's really dangerous. So you've got to be on your game at all times. As a matter of fact, I started exercising more and trying to really get in shape because I couldn't catch him. He's so fast.
Oh, yeah.
And I said,
and strong.
If I want to...
this kid's really strong.
If I want to be able to watch him and be his caregiver, I have to, be in my best shape too. So he's been an inspiration to me to get healthy and to my husband too. So we've been exercising just so we can keep up with him.
All right. So I have 2 more questions for you. One of the questions is... did you ever have kids or experience with kids with autism before? Have you ever been around kids with autism before? Not like us, I meant like in general. Have you ever you've worked at the Y before and stuff like that. Have you ever had experience with kids with autism? Have you ever been around them before, or?
Well, my aunt was, when I was growing up, I don't know if back then, they didn't call it autism. They said that, something happened when my grandmother gave birth, but she was, and of course they didn't call it autism back then, it was mentally retarded, but she had she was about like an 8-year-old, even though she was like 50, and she was my best friend growing up. I just loved her, and so I grew up with my aunt, and I just loved her a lot. She was like my best friend. But other than that, no, not really. And so that was a hard thing, because 5 years ago, Jane, or Grandma Jane, would not have known when a kid is acting up in the store that they're possibly autistic. I could say that in my mind, I would never go up to anybody and do some of the things that some people do. But in my mind, I can say that, yeah, I would have thought, oh my gosh, that mom needs to do this. She needs to do that. Not that I would ever tell them, but people in this world do come up to you. Even with my children, I remember someone coming up, and one of my kids were screaming in the grocery store, and I just had a way of singing or whatever and ignoring it, and they would stop. Oh my gosh, this one lady followed me around the grocery store. So, but 5 years ago, Jane wouldn't have known to say, oh my gosh, that's an autistic child. You need to help that parent and encourage that parent, and not judge. So, yes, no, I really haven't been, and it's a whole new world. It really is. And when I say it's a whole new world, everybody hears about autism and the Sheldons, and they're just smart, and they don't know how to function. Yeah. They don't know how to function.
No one really sees,
Right.
You see Elon Musk, who's autistic, and he's high functioning, and you're like, oh, is that what you're talking about? And I'm like, no, Leon's the one that's more severe, where they're hitting themselves and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I know we haven't talked about this yet, but when Leon was in the ER, which we haven't brought up yet, but this is a question I have. What would you have done differently for him? Would you have helped fight for an MRI of his brain to see maybe if that was one of the causes of his autism? When we went to the ER, because one of their things was they didn't want us to put him in all that radiation, and they were yelling at me, telling me that if I was a parent, I wouldn't put my kid through all that radiation. Do you think that we should have fought harder for an MRI of his brain at the time?
Well, I'm not going to second guess you. And this was before we knew that Leon was autistic.
Right,
and we were at the ER, and Leon started turning purple. I actually, because things happen with kids, I thought my daughter was actually overreacting a little bit. But then when it happened at our house, I could see what she was talking about, and then it happened at the hospital. And again, it's really hard, and I'm not going to,
because they never really gave us an answer.
No, they didn't. But it's hard as a parent.
I even try fighting for it now for an MRI of his brain or a CT scan, and they say they don't want to put him through all that radiation. And one of my things is that if I'm a mom and I want to put him through that radiation just to get answers, not even just because I want to, this was before autism, but you want to get those answers. How do you feel about that stuff? Because that's something that I think should be brought up too, because we're exposed to radiation every day. Right. Our phones give off radiation and stuff like that. So I think
that that's opening up a new episode, because and I don't think we can get into all of that. But I have a hard time with some of the aspects of once a child is diagnosed with autism, that how the doctors treat you, and how the doctors, the medical world, treats you,
not
but we're
prepared
not
for it
going to talk
either.
about that today. We'll get into that in another day.
But that was
'cause
my
I'm not
last
prepared.
question. But
I'm not prepared. I think we'll have to be very careful how we say how we feel, because we don't want to.
I mean, I love my doctor, and sometimes it's hard because we do need to. She always asks, "Hey, do you mind if we get more help?" And I'm like, "Yes, please," like, because I can't hold them down. Because then I laugh because I get nervous, and
Right.
it makes me nervous. And well, that's a different story. But
Yeah.
I love his doctor.
I think that's the end of this session for today. But so we're gonna start talking about. We've got lots of different episodes that we have in our heads, like we just talked about it. That we have another episode about doctors and that, but also about helping him with stem cell therapy. That's our main thing. He's going to be going for stem cell therapy. Just a little tease.
Well, we'll talk about
February.
those
In February, so that's a little
treatment
tease.
options and
And we'll
stuff like
let
that.
you know how we came across all that, right?
Yeah.
Right.